I was watching Ami. Her name is Ami. Zedia 36. Anyway, she was talking about upcoming surgery, hysterectomy and top surgery, and you know, it got me to thinking. You know, I have the essure implants. I talked about that, but I still worry about getting pregnant. And you know, I don't really like having periods, and so it would be pretty cool to not even have a darn uterus. You know, to not be able to get pregnant because there ain't no darn uterus for no baby to grow in. And there ain't no darn uterus for blood to keep building up and spilling out of my body. So that would be darn cool. And I had even considered that back when I was thinking about, well, what can I do for birth control back before I was going to start having sex, because I was thinking, you know, this was like all several years back, maybe about 5 years now, when I started thinking, well, I want to see what sex is like. Maybe it would be interesting to try. Anyway, so I looked up all the various options, and one of the options was like diaphragms, which didn't sound too bad. It sounded like it was pretty effective, but then there were side effects like you might have spotting, you might have cramps, and it might spontaneously eject. You might not even notice it, perhaps, which all sounded not very reliable. And I also looked into the hysterectomy, but one thing my mom was talking about, she had her uterus removed, and how she had problems afterwards. Not necessarily with her hormones, but just, I don't know. I guess when that piece of your body is removed, all your other organs start moving a little bit, taking up that space from where it went. And she was talking about how, I'm not looking at the camera, I don't know if they usually sew the top of the vagina together, or they just remove the uterus and your vaginas just open them into your body cavity. And apparently she thought, I mean, that's what happened with her, and she thought that might have caused some of her problems. And anyway, but also when I was looking into all the different things, I came across some websites about people who had hysterectomies, not transgender people, just people who, for whatever reason, their doctors recommended it, or maybe they just didn't want to have periods anymore. But and there was several websites talking about it. I forget what it was called, but it's like some people, after they have a hysterectomy, even though the ovaries are left inside, it's like they go through an early menopause. It's like their ovaries stop working right, or the blood flow is cut off somehow, and it's like then they started having all kinds of physical problems, and that was very worrisome to me, you know. And that's why I ended up deciding on getting the essure, because it blocks the tubes, prevents the egg from reaching the uterus, you know. And that sounded pretty darn good. It sounded even better than going in there and cutting or clamping the tubes, because it was less invasive. They didn't need to make any cuts. They just go up through the vagina in the cervix, you know. But since I had it done, I found out that some people have problems with essure too. It doesn't always work right. Sometimes the coils come out, or they actually end up coming not necessarily out of your body through the vagina, but traveling up the tubes. Gosh, this isn't what I wrote down to talk about. But anyway, either going up the other end of the tubes and ending up in the body cavity and sticking onto organs and causing problem, which probably hasn't happened to me because I don't have any horrible pains. But I do wonder sometimes, because ever since the essure, perhaps even before, I don't know. My legs, the flexibility on my legs has just gone downhill. And especially on my right leg, it's always been one thing or another, and I'm a lot more flexible on my left leg than on my right leg. But anyway, I was talking about hysterectomies, okay. Anyway, it sounds pretty darn cool not to have a uterus, not to have to worry about pregnancy and periods and all that. But like I said, I'm really worried about the potential side effects. Also, after the essure, it wasn't right away, but maybe a year later, and this was only for about half a year or a year, but I noticed, I don't know if it's related to the essure or not, but I started feeling like I was getting old. It's like I could feel my skin getting dry and old feeling. It didn't feel young anymore, and I started noticing more wrinkles, and also the same thing with my flexibility, but even just my joints started feeling really weak and breaky, and luckily that went away. So I'm not sure if that was related to the essure or my hormones or not, but it certainly was enough to worry me. Like, if I did have my whole uterus removed, it might, if that were to really happen again, that wouldn't be nice. Like, premature aging is bad enough when you're old. You don't want to age when you're still 37. I don't want to get old yet. Nice here. Anyway, that was one thing, but then there's another worry, like, even if it isn't getting old, but how it could affect my hormones. Like, even though I don't like having hormones that make my moods go up and down and all, but it's like how it might affect me sexually, because I am practically asexual to begin with. I don't have a sex drive. It's like I never have a desire to actually have sex with anyone. I do get, what's the word, horny sometimes, and I feel like masturbating. And I used to have fantasies that were sexual. It used to be actually, I mean, I say they're sexual because I'd feel aroused, but fantasies weren't about sex. And then later on, I started fantasizing about sex. But nowadays, it's like I still fantasize about sex when I masturbate, but it's just, there isn't anything special about it. There isn't no zing. That's what I was talking here. It's like I used to have fantasies, and I feel this indescribable, which I assume is something sexual. It's like this good feeling, just this intense mental content feeling. I guess having a relationship with someone else where you could have a feeling like that. It was something to look forward to, something to hope for. And that's why I started getting interested in BDSM, because that's what my fantasies were sort of about. So anyway, so if my sexuality right now is really very low level, it's like I just worry if I had like surgery and something affected my ovaries, it's like it could just be totally gone then. It's like I wouldn't have the hope of anything at all anymore, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if taking testosterone would give me more zing. I don't know. I don't see why it should, but life doesn't make sense. I don't know. mean, I don't really have any reason to take testosterone. It's just something I wonder about sometimes when I hear other people talking about hormones. I think that's pretty much all I wrote down.